Okay, guys, there seems to be some confusion on chapter 7. So let's see if we can clear this up. So we know that in every cell of our body we have 23 pair of chromosomes. And these chromosomes are made up of these inner protein structures that have DNA wound around them and duplicated pairs. There's going to be 2 of them, so you received 1 from your dad and 1 from your mom, and we got 23 pair of them like that, okay? So we also know in this DNA that's wound around these, certain little segments of that DNA code for certain traits by coding for proteins. Those are called your genes. And typically the gene for a certain protein is going to be at approximately the same place on each of these chromosomes. All right? And in every cell of your body, in these 23 pair, that's 46 chromosomes, that would be considered diploid. Diploid, which we usually write as 2N, okay? Because that is how many chromosomes you have in every cell of your body. All right, so when you make your gametes and you get ready to breed your offspring, the males, the gametes, are going to be the sperm, and the female gametes, we know, are going to be the egg. The egg's a whole lot bigger than the sperm. And these, through meiosis, we cut down on half of the chromosomes. So these are going to be haploid. We represent that as 1N. And when those come together as a fertilized egg called a zygote, then once again it's got the full chromosome number, so it's 2N. Now, let's say these genes, even though they're coding for the same trait, there might be different variations of them. The variations, let's look at as an example, are hair. Let's say that the different variations of a gene are called alleles. And for simplicity's sake, we're going to say that the dominant allele, which we'll write as a big H, codes for straight hair. And the recessive, that's dominant. The recessive allele, we will write it as a little h, and it codes for curly hair. In this little world we're living in, for an example. So, we will say that Dad, he had straight hair, but he was heterozygous. Let's say for our example, both Mom and Dad were both heterozygous for their hair alleles. So that means that Mom had one of each, a big H and a little h, for her hair allele. Dad had one of each, a big H and a little h. Okay? They both had straight hair, but they weren't purebred. They were hybrid or heterozygous. They had one of each of the alleles for their hair texture. Now, what is the percentages that their baby, their little zygote here, is going to have straight hair or curly hair? Let's find out. So we're going to do our Punnett square. Since we're only looking at one trait, we're only making 4 boxes. And we'll put whatever alleles Dad had up on the top and what alleles Mom had on the side. And so we know Dad was heterozygous. So that means he had one of each. Big H and a little h. Mom was heterozygous. So she had a big H and a little h. And then we just work the square. You move one over, move one down. Move one over, move one down. Move this one over, move this one down. Move this one over, move that one down. So all you're doing is seeing all the different ways that the offspring would be able to receive an allele. And from the law of segregation, it means that these alleles separate independently of each other, and so they could be paired up any which way. So that's why we got to look at all the different ways they could be paired. Okay, so when we look at our Punnett square box right here, and we say, all right, so what are the offsprings gonna be? All right, so we know that when we're looking at this, the genotype, which is just the types of genes they could have, these letters. Well, I've got one in the square that's two H's, so out of 4. So 1 out of 4 is 25% a big H and another big H. I got 2 out of the 4 that's big H and little h, so 2 out of 4 is 50% big H, little h. And I got 1 out of the 4 that's 2 little h's. So 25% little h, little h. Okay? So does this mean that they're going to have 4 kids and one of them's going to have 2 little h's and 2 of them's going to have a big H and a little h for their genotype? No, it means every child they have has a 25% chance of being heterozygous dominant, having 2 big H's. Every child they have has a 50% chance of a big H and a little h being heterozygous. When you got one of each, that's heterozygous. Okay? One of the same is homozygous. And in this case, it's dominant. But every child they have has a 25% chance of having 2 little h's, which is homozygous recessive. Okay, because it's got the 2 recessive alleles. So now we want to know about the phenotype of their children. And the phenotype is just the physical expression of those genes, what they're going to look like. So the phenotype of what we get out of this box is every time there's a big H, it would be expressed. So 3 out of the 4 boxes that we did in our Punnett square have a big H. So that means they would have what's dominant? Straight hair is what's dominant. So that means 75% or 3 out of 4 chances are going to be straight hair, and 25% are 1 out of the 4. 25% would be curly hair. So now we know that when that mom and that dad have a child, that child has a 75% chance of having straight hair and a 25% chance of inheriting the alleles to have curly hair. The only way they would ever have curly hair is if both of those alleles they receive are the recessive alleles. That's the only way they'll be expressed. Okay? So, I hope that helps. You can give me a text or something if it's not helping at all, and we'll just have to talk about it. All right. See you later. Bye.